Hello and welcome back to It's Not Just Black and White, where the topics that we discuss are most likely going to be controversial. So if you're easily offended or even very difficultly offended, this may not be the place for you. As always, my name is Ellie Lake and I'm sitting here with Corey Bearclaw
Yo, yo.
and Jordan Brown.
Yo.
Gentlemen, thank you for coming together on this phenomenal day. This week we have something really exciting. I think we all, took a real step into something that's a bit weird but a bit exciting because of the mystery. And I think we had a really interesting time learning about our topic this week. And what we did is we went ahead and tried to learn more about Scientology, what it surrounds, how they work, what do they ask for, and what are the outcomes of their faith system. So, alongside a bunch of other sources that will be in the description, we'll go ahead and put those there. We focused on three documentaries and docuseries. Specifically, one is My Scientology Movie, which you can find on Hulu, YouTube, and I think a few other places. Then the second is a docu-series on Netflix, and it is through Leah Remini. She used to be a famous celebrity. I guess in some ways she really still is. Everybody Loves Raymond. She was that lady. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show, but it's called Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath, and she basically lists her experiences, the people that she met, and she pulls people who have also left the religion, and then she talks about their experience. And because she got so high up, she didn't reach like the full top level clearance or whatever, but definitely people that she knew and interacted with did. But she was high up, and she talked about how being a celebrity, she was treated differently and had different expectations for her as compared to, let's say, an average doctor that signs up for the Scientology creed. Um, then the last one that we watched, this is definitely one we're gonna recommend that where you guys start to kind of get a firm understanding of what Scientology is, and it's Going Clear, and that's on HBO, and it's based off a book written by Lawrence Wright, and it's called Going Clear: Scientology, Hollywood, and the Prison of Belief. And I wanted to just real quickly tell you guys that Lawrence Wright, after I saw some of the books that he's written and some of the conversations that he's been a part of, is quite an important author, and has written books that a lot of people we've not even heard about. So to read some of his books off, so from 1979 to 2020, he's written like 10 books, it looks like, and they all have amazing titles. I think definitely at some point in time we should take on one of these books, and I definitely think anybody listening, they should read these books as well. You can go on his website, lawrencewright.com/books, to find these books. But one of the names is Remembering Satan. Another one is Saints and Sinners. City Children, Country Summer, A Story of Ghetto Children Among the Amish. Um, 13 Days in September, The Dramatic Story of the Struggle of Peace. He's written a lot of what seems like they're nonfiction books. A lot of them, he's observing behavior, and then he writes about them in the different, I guess, sections of society that he's observing at that time. And from what we understand of this movie, because we've not read the book, he has a quite a vivid way of painting the things that he wants to talk about. And it's really quite interesting. So that's what we're going to get into. I think the best place, I think, to start for us today is how we all even heard about Scientology, and what have we heard about Scientology before we did all this research, and what were kind of our first impressions before we knew what it's actually about. Corey Bearclaw?
Yeah, I've first heard about Scientology when Jim Carrey kind of came out and said that he was going into Scientology, and he started like going towards like the wacko zone from like normal Jim Carrey, or who everyone perceived Jim Carrey to be, to now he started growing out his beard, growing out his hair, and started becoming a wacko, and had this interview where he was talking about how everybody's made of Higgs boson particles and flapping around and this and that. And you could tell he was going off the rails.
Yeah.
And that's when I first heard about it. And then I remember hearing over the months and years or whatever, little known facts or whatever about it. and one of them that I thought was interesting, I don't know if it's even true, but I heard that they believe that emotions aren't a thing, but like you are taken over by like a ghost or a being or an energy that makes you envelop that feeling. And like those energies are everywhere, and your soul like fights it off or something like that.
What was the word they called it? They talked about it in the documentary. It was like a
life force, was it? I don't know, something
it was
force.
like one of those things that is from the past, like people who lived here or something like that, and they died.
I have no idea what it was. I heard this a long time ago.
Yeah.
This wasn't even from the documentaries that I recall listening to, but that's the first time I heard about it. My impressions of Scientology is that obviously I think it's a cult. My impression of it just right from the beginning is you see people have to go to these camps in a way, get locked up, get told how to live their lives, what to do, give up all their possessions, donate all of their money to this church, and now you can't leave this church because you're financially tied to it.
You know, I think it's great that you brought up Jim Carrey, because part of Scientology is like the manifestation of going from a spiritual point to manifesting something in the real world. Jim Carrey has a famous interview, I think it's with Oprah even, and he said when he had nothing and he was coming up in the game, he had, you know, the regular checks. He wrote himself a $10 million check until he was one day able to cash that same check. And that, you know, that's in a lot of ways, because it happened, now he can equate it to it being manifestation versus whatever, making the right decisions and comically and whatnot.
Yeah, but to actually go back to it, it's actually called a thetan.
Yeah, like a theta wave type thetan. Yeah.
Then you have them inside you, and you need to do like readings or something to get them out.
Yeah.
Some, like, crazy.
Or maybe you need to do the Dianetics or whatever they call it now, or you need to pay to use the machines that they have that only the Church of Scientology has. It's
like little like stress tests.
Yeah.
So what about you, Jordan Brown? Like, what was the first things you heard? What about any first impressions?
So Scientology, you know, it's been around for a while, and there's a lot of like, you know, hearsay about it, like he said, she said, things but it's kind of like a mysterious type of thing. And I remember actually my earliest memory of Scientology. I remember I was in the mall, and they had those stands in the middle of the mall. It says, "Oh, like, are you stressed?" or you know, or whatever, those little stress test things. So that's how big their outreach was. They were literally in malls.
Man, I feel like I never saw those before.
Well, really? I've never seen the mall kiosk one, but you know, those mall kiosks, they became eventually very expensive. So
yeah. But they used to be like Scientology things. Yeah. So I think I asked my dad or something. I was like, "Yo, like, you said you were stressed. You want to see or whatever?" And he was like, "No, that's like Scientology or whatever." And basically, you know, I heard that it was like some type of like money like making thing or whatever. But you know, I didn't think anything of it. But fast forward a few years. I was down in like Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, and we were kind of buying time. This was for one of our friends' birthday. We were like waiting for them, and we had a couple hours to kill. We were just like walking around, and then there was like this like museum, and like the girls had to go to the bathroom or whatever, and they let them go in, and we're like looking around. They're like, "Oh, like this is a museum. You want to take a tour?" We're like, "Well, is it free?" And they're like, "Yeah, it's free." So we're like, "All right, shit, you know, like why not?" So we go in, and they start talking all about this Ron L. Hubbard guy, and you know, obviously like none of us had ever heard about this guy before. Yeah. So and they're just like talking to him like this guy was like a fucking like savage, like he did everything.
They painted him as like a messiah.
Yeah, like he did everything. He cured himself. He was blind and like broken back, and he like was able to like get his sight back and everything, through the power.
He cured himself of leprosy, you know?
Yeah, like some crazy stuff, and he wrote all these books and broke all these world records and yada yada. And so we're just going through things, start talking about the whole like Dianetics stuff, and you know, these books as to how you can like manipulate people or work on your relationships and these types of things. And so we like went through that, you know, that whole deal, and like one of our friends actually bought a bunch of the books and stuff. You know, like the Dianetics books or whatever.
They were invested.
Yeah, like
they were in
like,
on it.
It seemed dope, right? Like
Yeah.
it was like, yo, like man, like this is, you know, this seems cool. And there was other people who were in on the tour with us. They kind of like came, you know, kind of like last minute. And in hindsight, or after I found out it was like Scientology and stuff, I remember like these people talking about it, and these people were kind of real like supportive of it. And I was kind of like thinking back, I was like, man, those guys were paid actors or whatever, who they planted in there to make it seem like they were supporting it or to make us feel more.
I mean, we know now that that's even the protocol.
That's
like, they definitely do that.
Exactly, and especially after we've looked into it a bit, able to see their tactics and what they do and things like that. But that's how I learned about it or really started to understand it.
What about you, Ollie?
Yeah, so again, like I've also been hearing Scientology or about Scientology or the word Scientology for what seems like a very long time now, almost, I guess the whole time that I've been in the States. But even before that, I don't know if you know this about Pakistanis, but Pakistanis love Tom Cruise. Ask any one of them, they're going to tell you they love Top Gun, okay? But Tom Cruise, basically, when he got into it, we even know now that he took Scientology to a new fame, to a new glamour, and that's when they started having this like public event, you know, which is just like this charade of a thing that, oh, look at how good we are, we got big golden statues, things like this, look at how good our religion is doing, and look at all these shitty religions getting bombed and stuff, whatever. But Tom Cruise was kind of the guy that, I mean, he didn't tell me anything about it, we just knew that he was a Scientologist, and we loved him, so we're like, okay, there might not be something wrong with Scientologists. So a very long time, we didn't think twice about it. I mean, we as in like my family, we didn't think twice about it, about Scientology. Like, we were just like, yeah, we like Tom. And then it turns out Tom Cruise not even that great, even though I love him, he's great. But, but anyway, so you hear about it, and then eventually there was a time where, I think there was just a certain time, maybe around 2010, around there, that there was like a rise in Scientology. There was like nowhere that you would go that you wouldn't hear about Scientology. I never went and did the class. I never talked to anybody about Scientology, although I talked to some Mormons that didn't even know what their own religion was about, which was funny. But that's beside the point. And we'll get into that point too, meaning like what kind of religion is this really? Is it calling for the same religiosity as traditional, conventional, ancient orders, or is it kind of a new wave delusion that, you know, what I was talking about is the cost of freedom. When you want, you know, America, we want all this freedom. I mean, as rightfully, but everybody does. The cost of freedom in so many ways is fanaticism. When you allow people to say and think and then do and enact anything that they want, they have cause to go mad. And that really brings us to the right place to now ask, what exactly is Scientology? What did we learn? What are the tenets of it? How does one achieve salvation? So I just went first to the Scientology.org website, and it's literally their What is Scientology section. But keep in mind that Leah Remini in the Netflix documentary, she also said that the real information that these guys follow, it's not public information. It's just passed down from like higher level Scientologists to lower level, and each level you sign like non-disclosure agreements that come with like $100,000 fines and stuff. And so that's why it's really difficult to just take for the word of what these guys are saying what it is. Because we have now other people saying that it's not what they're saying that it is.
Yeah.
So it says, this is on their website, Scientology.org. Scientology, this is a weird distinction to make, but Scientology addresses the spirit, not the body or mind. Weird thing to say. And believes that man is far more than a product of his environment or his genes. Again, very weird thing to say. Scientology comprises a body of knowledge which extends from certain fundamental truths. Fundamental truths, it's funny, we were talking about pantheism the other day, And that's also some certain, universal truths. So that's kind of that reference right there. So now, the prime among these are: man is an immortal spiritual being. His experience extends well beyond a single lifetime. His capabilities are unlimited, even if not presently realized. And this is the thing about realization. The similarity is between Buddhism and The Secret, manifestation. This is the same Jim Carrey story, $10 million check that he put in his pocket until he could cash it. They're saying that what you've been told, and this sounds really good, dude. Anybody who hears this sounds really good. What you are is a limited version, but what you can achieve is boundless. Now, who doesn't want that? And imagine how do cults, I'm not calling them a cult because they're not a cult. They sometimes may function like a cult, but what happens in the cult? You get everybody juiced up, believing in the same thing, and they're going to go to extreme lengths and what I want to prove with this episode, dive deeper into fanaticism. But just to finish up on what these guys are saying, Scientology further holds man to be basically good, and that his spiritual salvation depends upon himself, his fellows, and his attainment of brotherhood with the universe. Scientology is not a dogmatic religion in which one is asked to accept anything on faith alone. On the contrary, one discovers for oneself that the principles of Scientology are true by applying its principles and observing or experiencing the results. The ultimate goal of Scientology is true spiritual enlightenment and freedom for all. It's a weird document. I mean, what do you guys think so far about what they're saying?
Just right off the bat, you brought up a point about how they brought up a distinction between the spirit, the body, and the mind.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that the body, the mind, and the brain are three different things.
Yeah.
So the brain and the mind are completely separate. So the mind is how you think consciously, like how you're thinking up in space. Like, it's not solid, matter that's going on. But your brain is what, creates and thinks of the mind. But then there's the whole mind-brain problem of, does the mind create the brain, or does the brain create the mind, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then the body compared to the spirit, it's like you have an organism or a skeleton that's controlled by a brain, and then it moves around, but then you have the spirit that controls the mind, that controls the brain, that controls the body. I think that's what they're trying to do by separating and distinguishing all three of those. All in all, I mean, it does try and be spiritual, but at the same time, it's saying that man is it holds that man is basically good.
Innately good.
Yeah, innately good. But when you think about, in terms of philosophy, there is no innate good or innate bad in terms of humans versus lions versus snakes.
It's always a balance. There's always a duality.
No, there is no good and bad. If you go out and see a fish, that you don't know whether that fish is good or bad. A shark isn't good or bad. It's just a shark.
It's the way that it is.
A sardine is a fish. They're all fish. You see a dog. There's no innate bad about a dog. A dog is just a dog. If you just look out in the wilderness, animals don't think that they're innately bad or good. They're just
But then you see, they could be referencing, when you're born and you're a baby, you're not good or bad, right? You might actually even be innately good, right? Until you're programmed in the first 7 years as a thetan, or all these thetans waves or whatever they come through, then eventually you become good or you become bad. That implication is you become bad. You're innately good, but then you eventually being programmed, you become bad.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and it's just as to what they say, and then as what we've seen, how they operate seems to be very different, right? Very vengeful type of religion or cult or whatever you want to call them, faction, right? I mean, obviously, if someone speaks out or they're scared to have a doubt, they will attack you. They'll get rid of you. If there's someone who's not in there and they're kind of saying, this is weird, they're gonna go after you and it's in their creed, right? It says if someone is doubting Scientology, you must defeat them at any cost or whatever.
Moving forward, I think we should establish that by all meaning of the word, they are indeed a religion. They're taxes exempt like a religion. I heard a long time ago that somebody saying the difference between a religion and a cult. In a religion, their main guy is dead, and in a cult, their main guy is alive. So since their main guy is dead, even in a spiritual sense, they are a religion.
Well, they actually like function more like a business, right, or like a cult.
They function like a cult, yes, but they're legally a religion.
Yes, but remember, like, how they achieved that tax exempt status is they weren't for a long time, and they owed, I think, like over $1 billion, to the IRS, and the IRS was their number one like enemy for a while.
But now they're not.
They did, yeah, and how they eventually like defeated them was they sued the IRS. So their members, they have thousands of like members. Almost all of their like members filed suit against the IRS in every state, right? And so it was like, I think they had like hundreds of like like lawsuits all against the IRS, and then eventually like they were able to like broker a deal like, okay, you guys drop all these lawsuits, we'll like give you the tax exempt. And they gave them tax exempt, all the lawsuits went away, and that's how they had their big like victory or whatever. That was in like late 2000s, or yeah, so like 08 to 12, like somewhere in there that happened, where they finally achieved that religion
like status,
yeah. But that's how I mean, they find an enemy and they just will attack until they eventually find a way to win.
But so here's where it gets like mysterious to me, filled with mysticism to me, is when I just want to go back to Sed's addresses the spirit, right? The reason why that's throwing me off is because, for instance, with the example of my religion or Jordan Brown's religion, there's things that we need to keep out or do with our body to then align our mind then align with our spirit to then achieve the next level, which is the good afterlife versus a bad afterlife. Same thing with Buddhism. If you live in the correct manner, you're a good person, you live by the teachings, you eventually achieve a level of enlightenment, and you're no longer in the circle of reincarnation.
Don't you want to be reincarnated in Buddhism?
Yeah,
That's what the whole point of enlightenment is?
No, enlightenment is once you break out of the cycle.
Really? I thought it was the reverse. Maybe
So maybe I'm also wrong, but that's what I always thought that it was. So if you look at, if let's say you're born a human, you're a shitty human, you're born a cockroach. You're a better cockroach, you're born a cow. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
And then eventually you don't get reincarnated into the physical space.
Yeah.
You achieve a level of nirvana in an afterlife like ours.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
With Buddha and Jesus, as far as I'm concerned, he's there too. So yeah, that's kind of like what is Scientology, not even in a nutshell, that's kind of a thorough explanation of what Scientology is, what they're about, and how they achieved their religious status or achieved their prominence and their voice and vote in the mainstream conversation. But this religion was actually, in fact, created by a sci-fi writer, right? An author that has now, through the passing downs of his books, has now been deified. So even in his books, he was not necessarily deified. It's after that his believers deified him. His believers, true believers, made him a god. And in the sense that he could do no wrong, in the sense that if there was abuse claims against him, they would just be not believed or denied. And he, for a number of things, I think the most famous story is his ship, right? He had an Apollo, where basically he was trying to evade taxes, okay? He was trying to evade taxes, and then he created a ship of debauchery, where these guys, it wasn't a Scientology ship, it was just a ship for hippies to party. And then he had basically started his cult through these means. And you can basically go into international waters where there's no laws, and he can do whatever he wants. And that's how really the thickness, the darkness of his cult started, in my opinion.
Mm. And when you think about L. Ron Hubbard, is that how he started off his journey into Scientology. He was just a author, and then he wrote a bunch of fantasy books or fiction books, should I say, science fiction in particular. And then he kind of got into, he wrote a book called Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, and like kind of started creating and promoting Dianetics just in general. It was pretty crazy to think that that's how it started. And then he went into the military during World War II and started trying to promote and find leaders in the Navy, and kind of created this group of people on the boat called the Commodores of the Sea Organization, or he was the leader. He was the Commodore of the Sea Organization for the paramilitary.
The Sea Org.
And then even in 1952, he had bankruptcy, so he lost all the rights to Dianetics. He lost all of it. So now people would have to buy it or buy the rights to it or something like that. And later on, then you see L. Ron Hubbard, after he leaves World War II, you see him trying to overthrow like cities. Clearwater, Florida, for example. He tried to take over Clearwater, Florida. Got denied, obviously. Go U.S.
How did
US
he try
military.
to take over?
Well, the attempt was actually Project Normandy. It was actually one of the top secret Church of Scientology operations where they tried to go into government offices and the media centers, try and take them over and stuff like that. But obviously it got denied, and they were later on convicted of fraud by France. 11 of the ranking members of Scientology were charged in the roles of the Snow White program, which was a criminal conspiracy to purge unfavorable records of Scientology and stuff like that. In particular about L. Ron Hubbard. But later on, it found out that L. Ron Hubbard, he didn't get in trouble. His wife got in trouble. She got indicted.
Yeah, she took the rap for it, right?
She was just like, yeah, you know what? I got this. You stay out here,
Yeah,
honey.
but she was also probably a fanatic for the guy. Like.
Well, that was like the thing. That's what I noticed about L. Ron Hubbard himself. He was good at getting people to like do what he wanted them to do.
Very good.
But see, he teaches this in his books of like Dianetics, right? And then you see how he himself, like he kind of drove himself mad, essentially, right? He made up these things about him, how he was blind and these things, and how he got hurt in the Navy. Yeah, well, he said he got hurt in the Navy, but you look at his like military discharge like papers, because when you get discharged, they write everything that you got. And they said he was fine, totally healthy, all that stuff. But then he comes
walked
out
out
and
with
says,
flying stars.
Yeah, and then but he says, oh, he got hurt, and this, that, whatever.
So I'm sure that nobody talks about this, but clearly he functioned on all levels like a cult leader. And we have profiles on cult leaders now in the sense of a certain level of narcissism, a certain level of control that they need over situations and people.
Yeah.
So for sure.
Well, he eventually lost control of his own mind.
Yes.
Remember? Because he kind of like killed himself. To the point where he thought he had this like Thetan inside him, and he was spending like almost 24 hours a day trying to get this Thetan out that probably didn't even exist. It's just because he was bugging. And that's how usually this Scientology thing works, right? Like people get caught up in it and they just start bugging out to the point where they're like, all right, like what am I even doing here? And then they get out. Unless they're so consumed by it, they keep spitting all these things, all these words out. They like train themselves to the point of no return, right?
It's crazy because this is a great, like, very interesting point to make, because he had his problems, clearly a flawed individual, and yet today he is the standard and something that you will never become in Scientology, okay?
Yep.
But that's to say, look at this, because we know that both the Quran and the Bible were written after, like thousands of years after, but by the disciples or the people who really loved those guys and were with them, and you can see right here, like, imagine what the real teachings what might have been, or he was clearly a crazy man, and how his followers painted him as a god. Now, and I'm just making that relation that it would be the same thing. Why wouldn't you paint a guy that you loved and followed why wouldn't you paint him as a messiah or a great angelic human being?
Yeah, because you invest so much, you don't want to lose, correct?
Yeah.
Like with any type of religion, whether you think about some of the biggest religions, you have Jesus or Muhammad or the Buddha or so on and so forth, where like you're so emotionally and physically involved in these people and their teachings that if you lose, then like you lose your
identity.
like vision and your identity and who you think you are. So these people who are following them, whether or not their IQs were high or low or wherever they were at, whether they could think for themselves or couldn't think for themselves, they were invested in them. So they can't break away after a certain point. They're like, okay, well, this is he is our God or he is our Messiah, and we need to follow him in the words that he left behind, and then make interpretations of it.
Yeah. Interpretations are again relative, because that's where the whole thing gets messed up, right? That's what these extremists who use religion for bad deeds. That's all interpretation as well too, isn't it? So it's a bit odd. But you brought up earlier the Normandy project, and so what we can clearly see that from the beginning of this religion there are clear ethical lapses, and the concept or construct of infiltration, infiltrating this group, infiltrating that government organization, however we can, to not gain control, gain favor, and further Scientology or what it is that we want.
Yeah, and that's really why they started to go after all the Hollywood crowd. They built that big, a site there or whatever. It's because if celebrities were onto it and they could like pump it out, and then that would be a sense of like validation to the public to get more followers, which would get more money.
Oh, because they would see like, oh, look at how successful he is. He's Scientology. I want to be that.
Exactly.
Well, even though like you think about like fans of celebrities, whether they're musicians or actors, like people live like these celebrities are their gods, or just like their messiahs. So like if they see they're doing something, they're gonna do it as well.
Well, they do it all the time, right? It's like,
the power of their
this
brand.
like celebrity said that this was a good idea, so I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, you just gotta push it out. And it's kind of like media indoctrination or something like that per se. And it kind of goes into what we watch next about what was her name, Leah Remini.
Yeah.
And how one of the people I interviewed was what was his name?
Oh, you mean like the Islam
the
one?
Pastor, not the pastor.
What was his name?
Yeah. There was like a couple of them, and that was like a very like interesting one in itself, because I really like started to like notice this. Well, I noticed it early on, but that one big like black leader in like the Nation of Islam, he was giving an interview.
Farrakhan?
On the behalf, no, not Farrakhan, the other guy.
Yeah. The new head.
Yeah.
The new face.
Yeah, that guy. He was giving an interview on Scientology's like website or something, and I'm sitting there like watching, and I'm like, dude, this guy looks like he's like possessed, right? He's just spewing these things out, and it looks like it's not even himself saying it. It's like it's like a forced thing, and that's how I mean, or like what I meant as in like earlier. Like people just, they don't, it's like they're not even, like thinking anymore as in terms of what they say. They're just recycling things, and just they're not in control of what comes out of their mouth or what they think anymore.
Yeah, so to set up the Netflix docuseries Leah Remini, Scientology and the Aftermath. So Leah Remini is a ex-famous celebrity. She has now fame because of speaking against Scientology. But she created this documentary after leaving the Church of Scientology. She left the Church of Scientology because she had a good friend in the church. That good friend's name was Shelly Miscavige. Shelly Miscavige is technically was, because we don't know where she is, was married to David Miscavige, who is currently the leader of the Church of Scientology.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird how like David Miscavige even got to the head of Scientology.
Dude, I didn't even know what happened.
Well, I mean, he kind of became the like de facto guy once like Hubbard, kind of died or whatever. Yeah. But he initially got in because Ron L. Hubbard was like a movie director or something at one point, and he was working with this kids group, and he saw how David Miscavige, he was like a little boy, and he saw how passionate he was or whatever.
And he raised him.
So, yeah, he kind of like brought him in, and I thought it was weird. I was like, man, is this guy like a pedophile too? I mean, it kind of came out that way because I saw they had pictures of him like kind of.
So on the boat that this guy had, there was said that he had some kids that they were like special to him.
Yeah.
That he would like train specially in Dianetics.
And dude, I legit thought like this looks like some pedophile stuff.
Yeah.
And no wonder this David Miscavige guy, he always has been around. He was kind of like fucked up in the head.
Really weird guy.
And sold on the fact, right?
Yeah.
So basically for 6 years now, Shelly Miscavige has been missing. And including her husband and everybody in the church, besides Leah Remini and some other people, there is no official statement about where she went. She has just disappeared. Her family doesn't know. Nobody knows. And she, as the wife of David Miscavige, she was in a very precarious situation because she was in all the meetings. She really knew a lot. She was a threat because she started disagreeing with their narrative. So then when she disappeared, Leah Remini started asking questions. Then 5 years later, she leaves because she never got an answer. And she created this docuseries calling them out blatantly on the corruption, on the favoritism, on the elitism, on the vengefulness, on the falsehood of security left with just everything beneath you being ripped out from under you. She expresses all these things. And the episode that we focused on was season 3, episode 3. We thought that this was one of the most powerful episodes because it talked about what seems like is a theme throughout Scientology's history, which is infiltration. And this episode specifically talked about infiltrating the Nation of Islam. Then they had ex-leaders of the Nation of Islam, who are speaking against it, against the role that now Scientology is playing. So Louis Farrakhan he firstly initiated this. But I have always liked Farrakhan, so I don't want to necessarily say something bad about him. Because I wouldn't mean it, Dude,
it really caught me off guard. When I saw that Farrakhan was in, I was like, what?
Yes.
Like, really?
So the reason why they're infiltrating, let's say, African American communities and churches and communities in the sense that, not just a church, like the mosques, they're in there. So all these organized, but they're literally, this is what they're saying, that they're targeting these African American groups because, let's say, the Nation of Islam specifically, Scientology actually doesn't have hundreds of thousands of people. It's a few thousands of people.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's actually gotten way smaller these recent years.
Yes. So people are scared, weirded out. They know a little bit more after going clear, all that. But what the Nation of Islam brings them by getting one leader involved with Scientology, leader who then preaches in the guise of Islam the words of Scientology, which is the most heretic thing I've ever heard. Yep. That one guy brings them 4,000 people like that. The Nation of Islam brings them 40,000 people like that.
Yep.
In a blink of an eye.
And they're devoted too. They have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have all that discipline.
Devoted and
them.
Impoverished.
Yeah. When I saw that, I was definitely, taken aback, especially in that episode, how they're talking about how when it comes to the Nation of Islam, they didn't allow anybody other than black people inside their mosque or any of their meetings.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't allow any whites or anything like that in. But then they get a hold of the Scientology, and now all of a sudden they're letting say white people or other cultures come into the mosque.
But you see, I'm okay with that. That's what it's supposed to be.
No, but I'm saying so they always had a wall. You couldn't get in there unless you were this. And then Scientology.
Like you weren't accepted, or like you weren't allowed into it?
You weren't allowed
But
in.
here's where I completely disagree, and that's the wrong type of Islam if they're teaching that. Because that's not how it goes. Every race is accepted in there, and in fact you must let them in. And in fact it says that when you're standing shoulder to shoulder with them lined up with everybody else, and you're bowing down to somebody else, how are you better than somebody? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
What made me mad about this Nation of Islam one is that they're tricking hordes of real Muslims away from the religion, and that's the most satanic thing I've ever heard.
And that's what I meant, dude. Like, they wouldn't let anybody in, but then once they got a hold of like Scientology, then they were the ones to break through, infiltrate, and then they would let them in just to teach, Scientology.
But meaning they came in there and then they destroyed their own traditions.
Exactly.
And you could see how corrupt it was right from the beginning, because you see that Scientology, or the leader of Scientology, paid for Louis Farrakhan to go out to this crazy island, and then they like had a meeting, gave him a first class flight, 5-star suite hotel, wined and dined him for a while. So who knows what conversations went on during that time of, hey, we'll give you this amount of money or this amount of power if you bring this amount of followers. And it kind of ties back to what we were talking about earlier about taking people of influence and kind of manipulating them with either luxuries of life, whether it be money or houses or cars or whatever it is, and saying, hey, if you speak good about us, we'll give you more. And then the people who are following this person blindly, then go and follow him, because they don't know any better, because they're so emotionally and physically involved in this in this leader that they can't back out. They're like, okay, well, I've believed this guy for 20 years, and now what? I'm supposed to disagree with him after he brings up something new like that. That wouldn't really make sense. That's like if Christianity or the Pope came out of nowhere and said like something like, oh, murder is okay, or this or that, and like, or that you can go and rape somebody. It's like, well, that was never something you could do before, but like, I can't not believe this guy. This is who we've been following my entire life. I have to
believe him,
And obviously that's an extreme that would never happen, but like, it's kind of just putting it out there.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is they also had mentioned that some of these leaders who left the Nation of Islam because of all the like Scientology that started happening, they had said that they started like pumping in all the Dianetics books and things like this, and before, if you had like a disagreement with someone within like the Nation of Islam, like you guys would go and you would talk about it or whatever. But then as soon as like Farrakhan and these other guys got into Scientology, you said something bad about them, they all of a sudden they come smear you, and they just they like cut you out completely. And this is like a classic thing what we've seen.
And this is direct testimony also we're hearing.
Yes, and they said that this never happened until the Scientology got involved. And then once that got involved, it's like if you said anything against like Farrakhan, then like everybody was against you.
Before this Scientology infiltration, I already had my disagreements about how the nation goes about what I know about Islam, which is, it would only make sense. I'm from the source in a lot of ways, and they're not. So I already had some disagreements with them. And now, after this, and you're doing all of this Scientology shit, and you're calling it Islam, dude, I've never been more mad. I'm not even religious, and I don't agree with that. Because now what you're saying that's Islam, it's 100% for sure not.
Yeah.
Well, even before it would have been debatable. Yeah. And I liked Farrakhan even when he was blamed for killing Malcolm or being involved with it or whatever. I liked Farrakhan the whole time. Now I can't trust this guy.
Yeah.
I loved him. I can't even listen to him.
Yeah. Well, I think what made like Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam really attractive to Scientology is because as what you said, they were already kind of like cult-like. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like secret. Like I said, you couldn't get in there unless you fit that bill.
Yeah.
So it kind of was that way. So
same thing with Hollywood.
worked out.
Hollywood is already secretive. You can bring Scientology in there, and they would follow the same rules. And except Hollywood is the highest level of insecurity, so you can really break people.
Yeah, and going back to your point too, Jordan, about how like if you question their beliefs or ask about their beliefs, or start having concerns about the beliefs, they'll like either purge you or bully you, or so on and so forth.
Ostracize.
Ostracize you in a way.
They like disconnect.
Yeah, it in a way, like it reminds me of the communist era in America, when everyone was scared of the communists invading America and making and creating this whole new world and capitalism and so on and so forth. And like in government, it's like, oh, if you said anything about China, or if you called, or if you listened to this news outlet, or you called these or talked to these people, you were blacklisted as a communist, and you were to be shamed, or you're supposed to be taken away. And obviously it's a stretch of a comparison, but I'm like, that's how I can compare it to like trying to ban the bad people, or like the people who question our way of thinking.
It reminds me, you know what it reminds me of? Once again, mafia stuff. It's like, hey, imagine, I'm not going to do an accent because it's offensive, but imagine this is a group of mafiosos meeting. Hey, listen, Joey snitched on us, okay? That means he's dead to us. Nobody talks to him. Nobody, if you see his family, you don't look at him. He's out, it's just, again, it's mafia thing. It's organized crime in a lot of ways.
Dude, well, it's like super ironic. It's like Ron L. Hubbard said, to like control people or to get people to believe you, you have to lie to them. That was his teaching. That's what he said. He said you have to lie to them.
Yeah, I mean,
then you have
I think
people
Hitler
like,
said a version of that too.
Yeah, but so you have all these people blindly like following this guy, think he's a god, but like he straight up said, dude, he lied to all of you.
Yeah, but imagine, remember, that's the thing, like their disciples do this. But here's the problem now. This is what Leah Remini was saying. This was the Joe Rogan podcast, Leah Remini. You guys can look it up. Basically, what happens now is that David Miscavige, like for instance, you have to go going clear, right? OT8 is like the highest level, So basically, as people are moving up the ladder, they'll be like, or they like the higher ups, they'll come down and say, oh, now it's time for you to go to the next level, but you actually messed up these 2 steps. So they have to go do the whole thing again. You have to pay your check again. You have to do the bullshit all over again. And David Miscavige will change all sorts of rules, and then he'll say that, oh, I found it in the vault. I found it in L. Ron Hubbard's old vault, and they all believe it. And it's like, come on, bro, his vault yet?
Yeah.
But this, even where it started, bro, this is no longer that same religion. They're not functioning the same. No. There's something weird. But this is what I keep saying, and this is my point for this week, is that when you ask this, if the idea that America is, okay, if the idea that America is pans out, one of the outcomes is a thing like Scientology. It could be called anything. What I'm saying, that the price of freedom, true freedom, when people are allowed to think, do, and then enact whatever it is that they believe, true freedom comes at the cost of fanaticism.
Yeah, we see it all over, like today, whether it be extreme right wing, extreme left wing. People have like the freedom to say and think and all that, like religious freedom and whatnot, and so they're gonna do crazy stuff, do crazy things, believe crazy things, and just kind of go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and one of the problems I see, kind of to the point of being free and being a free country, is that you have the opportunity to say, hey, this is my religion, this is what I believe, and so you, as a religion, and separation from state with religion, is that you get to avoid taxes and stuff like that. And when we, going back to how we talked about how Scientology is just, it's a business in a way. It's not necessarily a religion or a cult. It functions more like a business. You get people in, any amount of money that they spend. It's like a pyramid scheme. Yeah, it's like a pyramid scheme, because it's any amount of money that they spend, you get 10% of however much money that they spend. And then on top of that, they're investing money into real estate. Like when they're buying those properties, when they say, oh, we're expanding, we're in all these different states and stuff like that, it's not that they're expanding, they're just buying property. People aren't going there. It's not like a church where everyone's going every Sunday. Yeah, they're empty. But what they're doing is that they're getting tax exemptions on this real estate, but also generating revenue or generating profits
Off
later
the
on.
real estate.
Yeah, if they end up going and selling that for $2 million extra in 5 years, they get to keep all that money, and there's no taxes on it.
Tax-free.
And where does the money all go?
Yeah.
It goes up to the top, goes up to the leader. It's just like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. And that's actually what they had said was so Scientology's membership is kind of at like an all-time low, but their wealth or how much money they have is at an all-time high.
And I also found out that most Scientologists, majority of Scientologists, never ever make it to the top. They never go clear. They never make it to OT8.
Yeah.
They just keep being recycled into the shit.
Yeah, because that probably happens is because, like, unless you have the notoriety of Tom Cruise or Jim Carrey, they're not going to let you up that big. Because, like, they're not going to let some Joe Schmo off the street just come up and be on the top. They're like, who is this guy? Why
And
is he
Tom
so
Cruise
special?
was
Get him out of
already
here.
a little wacko, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Tom Cruise, he also said, I pictured all of this, and then it happened. So if somebody comes and tells him there's a religion that's saying the same thing, he's going to choose pantheism like Corey did, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and I think a big thing is what keeps him in it is one, like I said before, I don't even think he's truly in control of all of his thoughts all the time. But secondly, as what Corey said, Scientology's paying him. That's tax-free money. This guy's probably getting.
Well, he's going to get paid to go to events, yeah.
Yeah, well,
course.
I mean, how they said the 10% of whoever got you in or whatever. Yeah, dude, like they credit him with.
But
a
each
lot of
level,
membership.
imagine it's like it's 100,000 to 500,000. So imagine he can just pay he could just buy a watch. To him, it's like buying a watch, and he can buy into the top. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He still made those payments to learn the next level and the next level.
Yeah.
But to him, the money is nothing.
Yeah.
I heard that he's kind of doesn't play the same role that they wanted him to play in the beginning, which is like a recruiter, like bringing all these people, which he did for a long time.
Yeah.
I heard that he's not really into that anymore with them.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I heard his relationship with them, the organization, is a bit rocky.
Falling off.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it seems.
Like he's
to be.
still a Scientologist in his mind, but it's a bit
that's
rocky.
how it seems to be with everybody. After a while, you kind of just like, all right.
You
like,
wake up from your
you wake up-
delusion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But when it comes to Scientology, so like, what exactly do they believe in, and like, what are they like waiting for? Is there some type of prophecy that's supposed to come?
There's
to
like this
fruition?
event, right? There's like this event or something. So there, from what I understand, there's this one event where if everybody has the thetans inside them, meaning they're not the ideal race. So there's this alien race, okay? Those are like masters. They created us, okay? And a lot of different ancient things say that. So I think this guy just took it from, again, it's not real. It's all sci-fi, okay? That means he made up from all the things that he knew already, which he could have read about any of these ancient religions and then made. He could have. This is like Corinthianism. Imagine if you really, really loved Corinthianism, you could have this happen, you know?
Yeah.
And then you would die and that would lead to fanaticism,
Yeah.
you know? But
It still might do it.
Might as well, dude. We
Yeah.
can make a bunch of money.
their end of days, that race of, I guess it's lizard, but alien-like looking people, they're going to come down and, enslave the people who are not Scientologists, and Scientologists get like this nice little Valhalla-like golden life, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, but it's kind of weird, right? Because now we see all these like UFOs and whatnot. Like you think their like lizard race is starting to like descend down on us.
They're coming.
So,
Scientology's coming.
I actually read that,
reckoning.
dude. That apparently like it's like the military or whatever. They're like seeing like UFOs like every day now. Like it's like a super common thing.
Yeah, I mean, but like I also told you, like, if I see a balloon in the air and I can't identify it, that's a UFO. It's an unidentified object. And I think there's a new name for UFO, too.
Yeah, there is.
They don't call it UFO, right?
Unidentified phenomena.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, yeah. They
It's
don't
like
call
a
it
UAP.
unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Yeah.
UAP.
Yeah,
UAP,
Get
yeah.
with the program,
Whoop,
dude.
whoop. That sounds better. But yeah, I think that if this is true, the sightings, I don't think that it's the get out of here. What are the odds? Okay? I think the odds are more likely that an ancient religion is true versus some shit a guy made up that I could fucking make
It's more
up.
likely that 2012 will actually happen.
I could make a story as weird as this.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if
It's
I do it,
gotta
I'm
be-
crazy.
Yeah, dude, that's like, man, this guy was like really off the deep end. Like it was kind of like striking, to hear some of the ideas, and I think they build up this knowledge that like you're gonna get, and then they say
You
like
basically get it, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
It's like some stupid thing, like how it's like, oh, there's like,
They're like, yo, I
there's, like,
spent
aliens or
800,000 for
something.
this.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just
You
like,
know, and so that's right there. All of that, the alien stuff is quite a ridiculous point. So I think a great time to end this podcast, and a great thing to end on, I think, is what we, after all the things that we read and learned, what was the absolute most fucked up thing that we learned. Okay, so I have a story. Corey Berkeley, you want to go first?
I mean, just to go right off the bat, two things that I thought were pretty fucked up was that they have this thing called the hole, where you go for like a month at a time. You spend, imagine like a small office space or like a meeting space. You spend a month in there with like 15 other people. You're sleeping shoulder to shoulder, packed in there like sardines. And and then like they yell at you, scream at you, and then like indoctrinate you by like forcing their will upon you for a month. That's one obviously crazy
That's like the
thing
hazing
that
period.
Yeah, it's like a hazing period to get you into the mindset of it. And then the second one was all of like the attacking and the shaming of if you don't believe it or you speak out against it. You have those people that follow you and just totally shame you. It's kind of like Game of Thrones when
Hunger Games.
what was her name? The queen.
Daenerys.
No. The one.
Cersei.
Yeah, Cersei has to walk through the town naked, and they all
Yeah.
shame her. That's exactly what I think about
That's
when it
what-
comes
yeah.
to like these people who are shaming and yelling and cursing at these like people who are speaking out against Scientology.
That's a great thing that you just connected right there. Great. Jordan Brown, most fucked up thing?
I mean, honestly, yeah, it's it's kind of like what Corey said. So the David Miscavige guy was trying to get like people to like he became increasingly paranoid, and this is also a common thing that seems to happen even to like Ron L. Hubbard. He became crazy, like paranoid.
But power does make you crazy, so you never know.
Well, but like
And this is a very
Scientology
specific-
makes you crazy. That's what I'm saying, right?
Fair enough.
It's like he's trying to get everybody to like confess to things that and just making things up, right? And like people are like fighting and going crazy, like the whole musical chairs thing. Did you guys hear about that? Did you guys read about that one? I don't know. Basically, like they made a game as to that. He made everybody do this like musical chairs thing. So he's making them go around and making these people. I don't know. It was like if you. The last one standing, I'm gonna like let you back into the church or something like that. And these were all like higher ups of it, right? Because he thought his like inner like circle.
This
was,
sounds like a
this thing on him.
dictator gone mad,
Yes, dude. Exactly.
What a way to determine.
And then so these people they were like fighting to get into these chairs. You know what I mean? Like legit.
Like
going
ripping each other.
nuts.
Yeah.
And then at the end of it, he was like, "I was just kidding. Like you guys just like sacrifice some more, and then I'll let you in or whatever.
Yeah, like
you better
it's-
tell me a secret.
Dude,
I'll
this
let
is
you in."
straight like it's. You know what this is? This is literally. This is how you break somebody's psyche. This is how you
Yes.
break people.
Yes. Well, this is how I mean, dude. When I watch people do their like interviews for like Scientology, right, on their website or whatever, it doesn't even seem like it's them speaking. Like it seems like a demonic possession. It's so weird.
Yeah, but they're
spewing
just
things out.
brainwashed. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
but
it's
it's
not
like-
actual possession because you would
It
know.
could be though. It could be because I mean, you have to think about like.
But it's not possession in the same sense that our
I feel
possession.
like it's like a curse. You know what I mean? Like you're because the whole thing. Remember, you're like the idea of it is to like come outside of your mind, right? So you're losing touch with who you actually are, and then maybe.
So
who knows, maybe like
come outside of your mind. This is very interesting. I've often talked to you about project called Monarch, right? It's I always tell you about the project that we learned. A certain secret organization learned that through running an experiment, how you disassociate someone's psyche, meaning by saying a code word, that person then assumes a different personality all in all, one that doesn't remember the other. So you find how to trigger that and then how to control that person through that. How that starts. The first thing that you do is you completely like put a person in a cage. It starts better if the people are younger. You put a person completely in a cage and you break them. You say, "Oh, you're nothing." You literally traumatize them to the point that their mind snaps in two. And that's what this hazing period in Scientology is for. It is the beginning of a deep and dark indoctrination. Because once you are broken, I can build you in whatever manner that I like. And you're going to do all the things that I say because I programmed you to do so. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it's a culty shit.
Yeah.
So the most fucked up thing for me, I know we went real dark in like a mysterious way. Mine was like a simple one. They touched me on a personal level, like I felt connected to that person for whatever reason. So these guys, they have people who are higher up. How they get higher up is spending more money, so they have them spend or sponsor different individuals or groups of people, and you usually sponsor by giving money. So let's say there's a regular couple, and this is also an example from the Netflix docuseries. So let's say it's a regular couple, they're an American couple, they're married, they're both doctors, but they also both have large student loans that they have to pay off. Somebody in the church, ideally somebody who brought you in the beginning, who you think is some hot shit because they brought you in and they're painted as hot shit. So they'll come to them and say, hey, go ahead and take a second mortgage. Go ahead and take a third mortgage out on your house because we got to get these people sponsored. It's your responsibility to do so. They're like, wait a second. Can we just look at our finances? If I do this, we're going to go into bankruptcy. The church says, don't worry about that. It's not about you. It's about the church. And they say, go ahead and go into bankruptcy. We'll figure it out. But you really don't figure it out. That's it. Then you're completely wholly dependent on the church. They're not going to take care of you.
Mm-hmm. No, they don't care about
That's
you.
money. That's just vampire shit right there.
Yeah, sucking the life out of
I
everybody.
felt bad for them because they were like two regular, reasonable, normal people who just trusted these other ladies or people, and they were like, listen, we just don't have it. We just don't have it. Where are we supposed to get it from? And if I give this to you, my entire family and my existence is over. And that's what they're saying. Go ahead and do that. But yeah, I think for today, I think we really went into depth about what Scientology is, how they came to power, how they gained influence, who leads it now, who started it, how it was created. I think it was a very wholesome discussion today, and we talked about a lot of things. As always, I want to thank you both for coming here together and sharing your stories and your experiences about our topic this week. And anybody who made it all the way to the end, thank you for tuning in. As always, my name is Zali Laik, and I'm sitting here with Jordan Brown and Corey Bearclaw. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Peace.